ask, where's Sid? Can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, buddy?
Sure thing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under
justice for all.
Wonderful. That leads us to roll call.
Gilbert, are you with us this morning? Gilbert?
She's on
Seems up there.
She's on mute.
Okay.
We'll run through it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Mr. Coda, Charles City County. Town of Ashland, Miss Abbott.
She's online. Just move. She's getting on. She's
Miss
on.
Abbott, can you hear us?
Sorry, yeah, I'm here.
Good morning. Thanks for being here again. Mr. Chambers.
Here.
And I'll note, Kathy Abbott is here for Dr. McGraw this morning as his alternate. Goochland County, Mr. Sharp.
Here.
Mr. Spoonhauer. Chesterfield County, Mr. Carroll.
Sorry.
Here, cut me mid-sip.
Mr. Davy.
Here.
Miss Fry.
Here.
Thank you. Miss Haley. Mr. Winslow.
Here.
I'll note Mr. Winslow is Miss Haley's alternate as well today.
Yes.
Mr. Holland.
Here.
Mr. Engel. And I'll note Mr. Winslow is Mr. Engel's alternate as well. City of Richmond, Mr. Addison. Mr. Giovia. Miss Lambert. Ms. Lynch. Dr. Newbill.
Here.
Mr. Poole. Ms. Robertson. Hanover County, Mr. Davis.
Present.
Mr. Peterson. Ms. Pritchard. Mr. Waddell.
Present.
Mr. Whitaker.
Here.
Henrico County, Mr. Baca. Reverend Nelson.
Here.
Mrs. O'Bannon.
Here.
Mrs. Thornton.
Here.
Mr. Thornton.
That was Mrs. Thorne.
Both Thorntons are here.
Both are here.
New Kent County, Mr. Lockwood. Mrs. Page.
Here.
Ms. Pearson. Powhatan County, Mr. Byerly.
Here.
Mr. McClung.
Here.
And Mr. Hall.
Here.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum. We're set to go.
Wonderful. And at this time, it's public comment period, so we would ask that if there are any members of the public who would like to speak or be heard on any item, please make yourself known at this time, and we will give you 3 minutes of glory. I don't think we had anyone sign up, did we, Lauren?
We didn't, and we don't have anybody in the Q&A or chat.
All right. With that said, we'll move forward to number 2, which is the consent agenda. Just note underneath this general heading that we have minutes for the last 2 meetings, February and March. And if you look at sort of that first sheet where all of us are listed, staff is making an effort to come and make sure that we have either noted virtual attendance or attendance when it's in person. So I think that's a good add, but would certainly entertain a motion at this time if they're to approve this agenda, if that's on the floor.
Mr. Chair?
So
Yes.
moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Newbill.
I second him.
And a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And now a motion, perhaps on February and March meeting minutes approval. I wanted to give everybody an opportunity to make sure you took a look at that before we did that. It is 2 months worth.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
we vote on the minutes separately. I was not at the February.
We sure can.
Thank you,
Yeah, it
sir.
doesn't have to be an omnibus vote. Good point. All right, is there a motion on the floor to approve the February meeting minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, I got one abstention, it's Mr. Waddell. Any opposition? All right. And at this time, is there a motion on the floor to approve the March meeting minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion, and I think I second somewhere.
Who are those? Thank you.
Mr. Waddell will be the motion, and then second will be Mr. Davis.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstention.
One abstain, that's Mr. Peterson. I'm trying to spot for you, Mark.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
2 abstentions. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right, very good. Standing committee and other reports. At this point in time, we are in the process of recommending approval of the succession management plan, which is included in the meeting materials. And I don't know, Ms. Heater, do you want to just summarize that plan for us very briefly, since
Yeah.
that is included in these materials and it was discussed at the last meeting as well?
It was, that's right, yes. In essence, this plan is coming before you today to be able to establish procedures for what to do in the event of an absence for the executive director position. We took it one step further to also be able to identify procedures for how to navigate absences in other key roles in the organization. So the important action for the board today is to be able to authorize the executive committee to take the steps outlined in the succession management plan in the event that I need to step away from my role in a temporary or a permanent basis, so that we have a process and a procedure in place. This is part of our ongoing effort to build our internal organizational sustainability and continuity of operations, but it also was an opportunity for us to utilize the grant funds that supported this project to be able to talk to our staff about their professional development goals, what succession development looks like for them, and how they could envision sort of a progressive career here at the commission. So the action that you're taking today is really to be able to approve those procedures around a temporary or permanent absence in the executive director role. But I think it's really important to understand that for the agency, this sets in motion a practice of continuity and planning for all positions, not just the executive director role.
And that is on page 15 of the packet. Are there any members have any questions or comments, Mr. Waddell?
I do, Mr. Chairman. I left my notes in the car, so I'm reading this from memory. The succession plan, the draft succession plan is well thought out, a lot of intellectual capital. Took me some time to read through it. I'm impressed. Do have a couple of questions on, I think, section 4, 5, and 6. Dealing kind of with compensation for the short-term absence, the long-term absence, and benefits. That was not covered, and I'm not trying to pick one of the current or future executive directors, but should that be addressed for how the compensation package might be addressed for a short-term, long-term, or permanent? Should that be addressed in this?
Mark?
Yeah, my first response is, yes, it needs to be addressed. I think the challenge that we had in incorporating a prescriptive set of instructions about that is that from any budget year or period of time, the decisions that the executive committee might recommend about that type of temporary compensation would need to be contextualized in the circumstances. And so we were reluctant to put any kind of an obligation around funding in a document that would transcend budget cycles. But I don't think that it's omitted because it shouldn't be addressed. It's omitted because we didn't want to dictate something that we don't know how to forecast right now.
Let me think, make certain I understand. That would be addressed by the executive committee on a case basis.
Yes, so.
Which would include benefits, health insurance continuation included.
Yeah, the typical for short-term or long-term
succession plan, or if somebody has to step in to fill a position at a higher level in the absence of the executive director or a department director, is 5 to 10% of the salary for that period. So that would be the guideline that would probably be relied upon and recommended to the executive committee should it be necessary. So that's always in the background.
So shouldn't that be in here saying?
Well, I think Martha's point is well taken, that, you don't wanna, if you put it in a policy document, then you're sort of bound.
Something like the executive committee has the power or will do this, that, and whatever is to be done. That would be where
I
it's
think
taken care of.
that's implied in the policy at least, but if you wanted to add that comment, certainly nothing wrong with it.
Any other comments, Mr. Waddell?
I think that's it, thank you, sir.
Any other questions or comments from members on the succession management plan? All right, is there a motion on the floor to approve the succession management plan as presented or with amendment?
The executive committee's motion to recommend, I think, doesn't require a second, because it comes out of committee.
Okay, very good.
So we'll move to vote if ready for that.
Okay, all right. So that's been a request for a voice vote on this, and it does come out of executive committee with recommendation as noted, so can I get a motion from somebody?
So moved.
Thank you.
Move.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? Good. All right. Thank you, Mark. Next, other items?
Yes, so at the opening table over here, there was a stack of letters. If you didn't receive one, we can make sure that staff circulates them around. If you'll raise your hand. But there's a letter from David Williams, the chair of the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization, who has summarized findings from a subcommittee that was formed by the policy board to look at opportunities to get the word out, if you will, about the activities of the RRTPO. And from that subcommittee, there were recommendations around actually hosting an annual meeting that would include the members of the policy board for the TPO, the PlanRVA Commission, and the CVTA, really to be able to have a discussion across the three entities about how the organizations work together to move this region forward, specifically with focus on transportation. And so this letter is an invitation for June 2nd, that is a regularly scheduled meeting of the Richmond Regional Transportation Planning Organization's Policy Board for members of this commission and the CVTA to attend and participate in a joint meeting. The executive committee did discuss this invitation this morning, and I think that there's general consensus from the committee that this would be a good invitation to accept. And the executive committee has determined that they would like to see invitations move forward to members of this body to join in that event on June 2nd. So from that discussion this morning, members of the Planning District Commission, the CVTA, and the TPO, and those of you that serve on 2 or more of those will only get 1, but invitations will be sent out to each of you for that date. If you serve on the TPO, of course, you probably already have that date and time held on your calendar. Because of the size of the guest list, the location will be different. So we will update you hopefully in the next couple of weeks with regard to the location for that meeting. We did also in the executive committee discuss that given the significance of this event, the hope would be that many people would be able to participate in person. We will be looking at alternative sites, and we certainly want to make sure that we can live stream this meeting through our YouTube channel. But as you know, when we go to offsite locations, the ability for people to participate remotely and interact with those in the room gets more complicated in different situations. So we would encourage people that if you're able to come in person, and we'll do our best to make accommodations if you need to participate virtually, but it just may be a little bit different than you're used to in this setting. This is a related note. I'll say that the executive committee did discuss the meeting schedule for June in light of this event. The preference of the executive committee is to maintain its scheduled meeting for June 9th so that the executive committee can handle any matters that come up, particularly around the office space and our move and everything like that. But I think it's for the commission to discuss this morning whether or not you see a need to have a meeting in June in addition to this annual meeting. So right now, your meeting schedule for the commission would be to convene at 9 o'clock on June 9th. For some of you, coming to the June 2nd meeting would be an additional thing on your calendar, so we wanted to be sensitive to that. And from a staff perspective, we're prepared to be able to make sure that all of the business that needs to be conducted this fiscal year can happen next month if you decide that you want to cancel the meeting.
And that last part is the highlighted part, and that is to say that I think the executive committee felt that it should continue to meet in June to receive the reports, particularly as we move into our new facility downtown, and get those regular reports, but that the regular meeting didn't necessarily need to happen given this joint meeting that is proffered for June the 2nd. Does anybody have any thoughts or any discussion on that item? Yes, Ms. Carroll.
Yeah. Actually, it's in relation to her first statement about moving the venue for the meeting. And I'm not trying to, VDOT might get mad at me for offering this up, but I think we should check with Shane Mann on the availability of the VDOT facility that we utilize for the CVTA.
It's a great space.
Down in southern Chesterfield County. It actually has the space to do it and the technology capabilities on site. And there are a lot of people who probably haven't seen this that are part of the regional groups, and it's really a great new facility that serves, I mean, from Fredericksburg all the way to North Carolina and east and west. So it would be an opportunity, I think, also for people to get to see that new facility.
Great suggestion.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Any other comments or questions about the schedule? Is there, I guess, we don't need to necessarily take action, I guess, on that, but seems to be no objection to canceling the June meeting? Is that regular meeting and keep the executive meeting? Is that seems to be, okay. I'm getting nods.
Yeah.
Correct. All right.
So by consensus, we're canceling that meeting?
We'll cancel that meeting in June. We'll keep the June 2nd joint meeting with these other organizations, TPO and CVTA. And then, but the executive committee will still meet to receive reports on our move.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Holland?
Yes.
We have our audit facilities and finance committee report, speaking of which.
Yes, well, I have some remarks here. Design work is continuing according to the project schedule that includes architectural design, and the committee has approved the general space layout, which serves as the basis for the final drawings. Staff is reviewing renderings currently to make decisions on finishes and materials, and will be making recommendations to the committee on any design alternatives to be included in the final drawing and construction documents. The team is coordinating with vendors to evaluate data and power needs, as well as furniture and accessibility. Where possible, and I think this is something important, we're working to use local businesses according to the Commission's inclusive purchasing program, and is competitively bidding and quoting all applicable elements of the project under Virginia procurement. The Audit Facilities and Finance Committee met on yesterday to review 3 proposals for mechanical engineering and plumbing, MEP, design and name a preferred proposal according to staff to execute the contract, which will advance the design process. The architectural and MEP design drawings, both to be completed by PlanRVA, will be used to create the construction documents used to collect bids for construction. Let me just say the committee is very appreciative. I'm very appreciative of the committee's flexibility and response to matters requiring special meetings, as we did yesterday, and staff is grateful to the members for their attentiveness. The committee is scheduled to meet again on April 26th to review the next set of decisions related to the office space and to review the fiscal year 2023 annual budget. Now, I might also add, we have a focus on quality, delivery, and budget. We're being attentive to those 3 critical aspects of this because it's critically important in all phases. And I appreciate the expertise that we have on the committee to help us execute and carry that out. If there are any significant changes or deviation from the schedule, we're gonna certainly let you know very promptly.
Any questions, Chairman? Mr. Holland? And Mr. Holland, Baskerville is basically running the whole shebang at this point, is that
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, we reviewed all the proposals and the committee and its wisdom believes that it's the best for this group, especially given the management oversight of the critical nature of timing. And so,
And
committee
Mr.
made a
Peterson's
recommendation.
done this kind of thing before.
Yes,
There's a lot of
yes.
good advice.
A little bit of experience.
That's exactly right. And let me add, if you would like to add a comment or two, or any committee member, certainly please share at this moment if you would like to add to those prepared remarks. Anyone on the committee?
Oh, I'm done.
Okay, all right. And again, thanks to the committee and to Mr. Peters in particular for his expertise in this given area.
Well, thank you, committee members. You've done yeoman's work on this, and I know that you've been extremely diligent and thoughtful in this process. So I want to say thank you to each of you who attended those meetings. Mr. Davey, public outreach.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Due to some travel constraints, I had to ask for our committee to postpone and reschedule our monthly meeting. So almost everything that's been done this month has been done essentially by staff. So I think it's most appropriate to have Ms. Heater give the update on what staff's been working on for community outreach.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Davey. So following last month's branding presentation from the Brand Federation team, we are working to execute our plan for implementation. Just briefly, that includes kind of 4 buckets of activities: reviewing our existing material, content, the channels, so our website, print material, social media, to see how consistently we're already conveying who we are and what we do. And updating any kind of key messaging that would focus on those 4 roles that were outlined: the seer, the convener, the planner, and the shaper. So as you know, and I did put hard copies of the presentation back on the back table. If you weren't here last month or you weren't able to pick up, I think I tried to get everybody a booklet in their hands, but if you weren't able to pick that up, it's on the back table. As you know, that is our playbook for internal purposes. It's not the external messaging, but it does sort of set the foundation. And so last month's meeting and presentation was important to be able to get that gut check from members of the commission to know whether we were in the right direction. From the material in that document, we will create the actual language that we use externally. And I know some of you were excited and maybe some of you were a little bit fearful. We will not be including Gandalf as our mascot for PlanRVA. That was a little bit of fun and a little bit of playfulness on the part of the team from Brand Federation, but that's not a part of our formal outreach process.
Okay.
So
Somebody write that down.
yeah. But in the meantime, we've also been working to be more present in the community. Certainly the lifting restrictions has helped a lot with that. So I wanted to highlight several things that have been happening to credit our staff and to just be able to share with you. Maybe if you're out and about, you will have seen us or will see us this summer. So some key areas that we've been focusing on, we've had some significant targeted outreach this spring to community groups in support of our regional bicycle and pedestrian plan. I think I'll touch on this in the key imperatives, but that plan was reviewed by the Technical Advisory Committee for the TPO this week, and it will be recommended for approval by the full policy board for the TPO at the May meeting. So we've also been in the midst of community outreach for the general public and targeted community groups in support of the development of the multi-regional hazard mitigation plan. This is a project that we do in concert with the Crater Planning District Commission on a 4 or 5 year cycle to be able to update that. And this is really important because this document will actually be coming to each of your jurisdictions for local adoption. This partnership across the jurisdictions that provide support helps to create an efficient process to fulfill a requirement for FEMA to have a hazard mitigation plan in place. Localities that do not have a hazard mitigation plan in place are at risk of not being recipients of federal aid in the event of a disaster. So this is a pretty crucial part of that. And for many years now, the regional commissions have been the home of the coordinated effort to develop those plans on behalf of the jurisdictions. So happy to share more about that, but this will be an item that will be coming to your local boards later this summer. In addition, we've got a lot of kind of speaking engagements, sort of generally, and kind of community outreach. So I was invited, along with my colleague Alec Brebner from the Crater PDC, to participate in the Chesterfield County Board of Supervisors meeting a few weeks ago now. I don't remember the date, but that was nice to be able to be there and give some updates about things that are happening across our two PDCs, since Chesterfield is a joint member of both. Chet and I also were able to participate as guest speakers at a Wilder School seminar class this spring. So that was pretty exciting. It wasn't one of your classes, so I'm sorry. But we haven't been to school for a couple of semesters now because of the virtual. So it was nice to be able to be back in that with Dr. Accordino and his students. We also represented PlanRVA at a workshop for internships at PlanRVA. We were a featured speaker about how we manage and run our internship program here. And then our staff team participated in an internship fair, or I guess it was a career fair at VCU. We also were featured in the NATO National Association of Development Organizations Washington Policy Conference as a panelist and speaker around the work that we're doing for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And Rashonda and I participated in a Captain's Table event, a virtual event last Thursday hosted by Atlantic Union Bank and Sands Anderson. They convene a group of nonprofit executive directors around the region every month, and we were their featured speaker this month. So PlanRVA, so I would say if you are a part of a group or you have, you see the opportunity for us to fit into one of your local agendas, we would love to come and talk to your ward or your council or committee if that's the right way to have that, and would welcome that. I know our team was around to each of the 9 jurisdictions over the last couple of months to present the bike ped plan, so thank you for that. I think some of you channeled that to committees, others were at board or council meetings, and others yet were in some of the district meetings. So thank you all for that support, and we would love to come anytime to do that again on any topic. Then just quickly, we are going to be working with Richmond Memorial Health Foundation, Chesterfield, Henrico, and the City of Richmond for a public launch of our market value analysis tool, which was completed at the end of March. This is a data-intensive tool that evaluates housing market conditions in those 3 jurisdictions. 2017 is the benchmark year. This is the first year that this study was completed, and then the 2021 data was updated. Richmond Memorial Health Foundation has been really kind of the lead entity in designing this project and commissioning the work. And PlanRVA is going to be the data partner at the tail end of the project, where we're going to host all of the data, and the idea is that we'll be able to pull it into our regional indicators project and hopefully over time expand it to the full region. So we're really excited about that. I'll just note that Jacob Giovia from this board, from the City of Richmond, has been participating in that steering committee and has been a really helpful kind of thought partner on how to move that project forward. Finally, we are staffing 2 active public comment periods currently that launched yesterday on the proposed operating budget for the CDTA, as well as the remainder of the 6-year planning program and funding scenario for regional project priorities. So if you haven't seen it on social media yet, I think it will be there. But also there are opportunities and instructions for how the public can give comment to that. And I believe a press release is scheduled to go out this week to get the media interested in hopefully covering this topic. So I know Mr. Digby will be scheduling a new public outreach committee meeting to dig into a lot more of the meat of the work, but there's been a lot happening even when the committee hasn't been able to meet.
Questions, comments? Yes.
I would like to, one of these conferences that Ms. Heater went to, there was also an election at that conference, and she did not mention that our executive director is now on the board of directors, I believe, again. Is that correct?
Yeah.
You might want to share that with the rest of this group.
Yeah, I am really excited. Thank you for that reminder. I'm excited to have been reelected to the National Association of Development Organizations Board of Directors. So it's a 3-year term, if I'm not mistaken. So I was originally elected 3 years ago and then got reelected this past week. So, thank you.
Well, I think that deserves a round of applause. Wonderful. Well, that reflects very positively on the region and this organization. And glad to hear that.
Thanks.
All right, you're up with the executive director's report as well.
Okay. I am going to share my screen as soon as I get this loaded up here. We actually haven't been able to do this update for a couple months because there's been so much on the agenda, we've had to defer, I think, twice. So I've tried to keep this brief and we'll just kind of hit some highlights. Just to reset, this is the set of key imperatives that were approved at the beginning of the year to keep us grounded in my priorities and the accountability back to the board about what's important to the agency. So I'll walk through each of the 5 priority areas and just give you some highlights of things that have been accomplished over this time. So first and foremost, preserving our financial position. I am pleased to report that the February financial statements are very positive. Our revenues exceeded our expenses again in February, and so our year-to-date net income, if you will, is in the positive to the tune of about $70,000. So when the Finance Committee meets again at the end of this month, they will be able to review all of the Q3 statements through March 31, and those will be in your packet for the May meeting. But we are, at this point in time, operating ahead of where we would have projected for the year, and I just wanted to say thanks to the staff for their efforts in that. The way that they spend their time, making sure that they're maximizing grant funding, but also in the way that we've been able to curb expenses has been just really a team effort on the part of everybody for our staff. So in addition to that, we do have been working with Chesterfield County. They've kind of adopted us for HR and finance related support and guidance. And so we've been working with that team to look at our long-term staffing for financial management. I know the Finance Committee discussed this a couple months ago. We had an opportunity to consider a partnership with Crater Planning District Commission that's been put on hold for a couple different reasons, but we are continuing to move that forward with permanent staffing for financial administration here at the agency. And we've made some strides in sort of some internal operations. It might sound kind of boring or a little bit in the weeds, but we've been able to really leverage some automation here in the agency, which has freed up a lot of staff time so that they're not taking as long to do certain tasks, and then that enables them to be with our localities or take on additional projects or that kind of thing. So we're really pleased with the progress we've made in this area. Managing core operations, we did send out as part of your packet the cover letter for the federal certification review. I just cannot say enough about what an achievement this is for our transportation team led by Chet Parsons. As many of you know that have been around for a while, the federal recertification process for the MPO program is a really big deal. And it's one of the core responsibilities of PlanRVA to make sure that we are maintaining all of the compliance requirements associated with the MPO. If you were here 4 years ago, you know that we had some findings and some recommendations. This year we had pages of commendations, and it's just really exciting to see how dynamically the staff have incorporated the recommendations from prior years and turned those areas of improvement into now a model for how other MPOs should be operating.
How long did that take, process from beginning to end?
The certification process, the review process itself occurred in August of 2021. Yeah. I think where you're headed is the timeline to get the results of that still was about, where are we, 6-8 months?
No, that's pretty good actually.
It was.
Better than average.
Yeah.
Usually it's sometimes it's taken years.
Yeah. So the federal team, I think, did work hard to get us those that information, which is appreciated, and especially because it was such great news as well. So just wanted to take a moment to highlight that. Also in our imperatives for this year, we had closeout of the rural transportation program. So as a reminder, in this fiscal year, the MPO boundary was expanded to include essentially the whole of the Planning District Commission region. There's one portion of the southern part of Chesterfield County that's excluded because that area is covered by the Tri-Cities MPO. But the remainder of the communities who had a divider line in Powhatan and Goochland and New Kent and Charles City now are wholly included in that. So the rural program has been essentially decommissioned with the Planning District Commission, and the whole of our communities are covered by one of the two metropolitan planning organizations. In addition, we've achieved closeout of a number of our emergency management grants with no findings or recommendations, as well as I think 2 of our environmental program grants. So all of those have been happening on cycle and on time, and we're just want to credit the team for the work that they've done there. Finally, with CVTA, the progress has been moving forward. I don't want to speak for the members of the Finance Committee, but yesterday's meeting, I think many of the committee members relished in sort of the accomplishments that have occurred with the CVTA. And as I mentioned, we have a public comment period right now, but at the end of this month, the CVTA will take up a significant item of consideration in assigning the revenues in the regional pot to projects. And it's been really enjoyable to be able to see how that's moved forward. And I'll just pause because I know there's 3 members of the Finance Committee here.
Can I say there, boss?
It was a good day yesterday, so. Finally, the housing grant program is launched. We are actually preparing to receive about $500,000 in requests from our partners through Partnership for Housing Affordability to distribute this quarter, and more on its way. The spring allocation round is under review, and I think there were, I want to say 9 applications. We're not a part of the selection process, but I was copied on some of the communications, so we're really pleased with the response that we got from that second round.
And I think it's worth noting, this is an expansion area for PlanRVA.
It is,
This is
yes.
our first foot in this water here.
Yes,
So,
yeah, and it'll be a nice segue to today's program later in the agenda. So on the next imperative idea, building relevance and demand for services, as you know, we've been in the throes of this brand strategy and community engagement. I'll just again call attention, since she's in the room, Rashonda Lanier-Jackson came on board, and she has been drinking from a fire hose, but been doing a great job in supporting a number of our staff members, as I mentioned, through those public comment processes. But many of our staff members have been standing behind her, working to develop content. So I'll point out, since they're here in the room, Rebecca leads our Don't Trash Central Virginia sort of partnerships and the communications and everything like that, and works closely with Rashonda and Sid on putting that together, and really has taken this program and run with it and cultivating really creative new partnerships with Keep Virginia Cozy and some of our tribal organizations, and getting on the ground and doing litter cleanups and things like that. So it's just been a really great program. So thanks for what you're doing there, and many, many other things. Let's see, Dan's in the room, and he's been present in almost all of those community meetings that we had for the Bike Ped Plan. So that's been an exciting project to get off the ground and be able to bring back. So Chet and others have been making sure that plan from 2004, I think was the last time we did an update to the plan, was brought into the current day. And I wanted to, let's see, I'll do that on the next slide. The next slide, thinking about driving new initiatives. So the housing program, obviously, but also we continue to work strategically with some of our partners on the regional data and indicators project. So this market value analysis is going to be a critical step to that. I know, Mr. Addison, there's been a lot of conversations that you've been leading about really how to get some energy around setting targets for the community and how to support the data. So we've been following that closely and thinking a lot about how we can partner more intentionally with the Community Foundation and the Chamber as they try to move those programs forward. And then I'll just note that our Emergency Management Alliance has taken a big step forward this past month. They'll be spinning out their own website that's really geared toward their interaction and sharing and that kind of thing. So we'll still be maintaining and supporting the Plan Safe program, promoting awareness and education opportunities for community members to think about how to be prepared in the event of a disaster. But this new Emergency Management Alliance site will also create the space for those emergency management professionals around the region to be able to interact and share with one another. So with greater digital functionality. And then finally, advancing special priorities. You've heard a lot about the office space today, and we spent quite a bit of time talking last month about the CBTA continued relationship next year. Internally speaking, we have been doing a lot of work. Gilbreth, whose voice you hear coming from the sky, has really been doing a great job in putting together a series of training opportunities for our staff. We actually just signed a training agreement with the Chesterfield Education Program to do a Office 365 training program, how we can more fully leverage Teams. Mark Bittner has led a migration to the Zoom phones. It's going to save us a couple $1,000s a year. So we've got a lot kind of going on in that sort of internal back office system design to be able to more fully leverage some of these technology tools. And Diane, I should say, kicked off the launch of a new HR platform. That was a priority from last fiscal year to develop staff intranet and a way to be able to better connect HR resources for our staff. And so that's been fully deployed, and we'll be kicking off the performance management module of that later this spring. So we're really excited about that. I just wanted to point out that we do have a new staff member here in the midst. Nicole, I didn't tell you I was going to do this, so I wanted to just call your attention. Nicole Keller is our new resilience planner, so welcome aboard. She just started with us on April 1st. But we're really glad to have her. We were able to swipe her from Department of Conservation and Recreation, and she's just going to be a great addition to our team with her both scientific, technical background, but also a really strong interest in policy. So thanks for being here this morning.
Awesome.
And then finally, Mr. Winslow, I put these in front of you because last month, again, you might have seen on social media, we had an exciting opportunity to be recognized with the Emergency Management Alliance on the state level from the Virginia Emergency Management Alliance. So 2 awards were given, one to the Emergency Management Alliance for the Recovery Program of the Year. And the second was a Preparedness Program of the Year. And that was through our efforts last year. You might remember we did a series of sponsorships with the squirrels and lots of public outreach. Parney and Nutsy were doing some promotion of what it means to be prepared in your home and your community, and we'll be kicking off that with the season opener that started this week, and we'll be kicking off a whole set of outreach with the squirrels again this season. So,
Comments, questions? Yes, Mr. Whitehead.
I took some time last night to read the certification from FHWA and FTA. Great reading, very impressed. Congratulations to your staff. Thanks to your staff. Anytime that you get a good report card from the reviewing agency and the higher up, that's a good thing. To get a great report and commendations, it is something to be really proud of. I am happy to be associated with a group like this that affects the trajectory and is regarded in such high regard. May I suggest that we lift some of the comments of the commendations and put them on a website and maybe in the outreach? Because if you're doing a good job, you need everybody to know. If you're doing a great job, definitely we've got bragging rights. Thank you.
thanks for that. I'm looking back. It didn't occur to, I don't think me to thank you. We should be doing that. So thanks for that.
Thank you very much. It was great reading last night too.
Other comments, questions? I think hopefully everyone gets a sense going through that report about how much work has been done by staff this year and how elevated this organization is being viewed, not only from a federal perspective, but also interregionally. We're getting a lot of good things done, and I want to say thank you and give another round of applause for staff, please. With that, I think we have a special program.
Yeah, so one of the things that we set out to do in the key imperatives this year was really kind of lean into this idea of acknowledging that this table today and virtually is set with the leaders from around the region. And so not everything that you discuss in this meeting has to be the work of your staff. It can be sort of thinking beyond the work that we do. And so we had this really exciting opportunity to bring an expert in to talk with us today. And I'm going to, Javon, if you're ready, He's pulling double duty this morning. Javon Burton is the Executive Director of Partnership for Housing Affordability. And I think he's stepping away from one meeting to be here to do this introduction, but we're just really excited to be able to give a presentation to you with the expectation that it's an opportunity to seed conversation among leaders in the region. I think, depending on what you think, this could be an opportunity to go back locally and have conversations, to think about your staff members that sit on the board of Partnership for Housing Affordability and what kinds of regional conversations could occur. But we just wanted to be able to stimulate discussion about what we think is a topic that's relevant to all of our communities in the specific opportunities around existing home repair and what that means in each of your localities. So Javon, if you're there, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
And can you see and hear me, Martha?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So thank you all for having us this morning, and I have the honor of introducing our guest, Karen Black, this morning. But at first, I just want to set the stage for the issue that we'll be discussing, which is home repairs and our aging housing stock and why that's such a pressing need for this region. So before I introduce Karen, I just want to give a little context on what it looks like currently within the Richmond region in terms of our aging housing stock. We have about 135,000 homes in the Richmond region that are over the age of 50 years. And many of those are inhabited by senior homeowners, which is our fastest growing age cohort. So with our region adding 5 new senior households every day for the next between now and 2040, it's imperative to focus on this issue, and social isolation is going to become more and more of a risk. So with that, I will introduce Karen Black. She is going to help us find for our region creative solutions to this challenge. So we're very grateful to have her today. Karen brings years of experience in implementing innovative strategies to solve key community challenges. She's worked with cities and counties across the country to design and implement effective programs that improve the health of communities. And most notably, she co-founded the Healthy Row House Project, which that's an initiative to improve access to private capital for home improvement loans. And that program has leveraged more than $100 million in public and private capital. So with that, I will turn it over to Karen to talk a little bit deeper about the opportunities that exist to improve our aging housing stock here in the Richmond region. So thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was wonderful. Let me try to share my screen. That's not the right screen. Let me try one more time. Okay. If someone who is not muted could tell me that they can see my screen, that would be wonderful. Yes?
I can see it, Karen.
Okay, thank you. I would just hate to start talking and no one's around. Thank you for letting me join you virtually. So I have been working in the area of housing for many years. And interestingly, over the pandemic, I was working with National Fannie Mae Foundation on revitalizing neighborhoods, particularly distressed neighborhoods. And I was working with other cities on creating a balanced housing market and creating more affordable housing. And I was working in a different city to look at property maintenance and how the culture of owners taking care of their properties has changed, and not for the better in that community. And there was this common denominator around how to improve, maintain, preserve our existing housing stock, particularly in communities, and there are many of those in the Metro Richmond region, where we just aren't building a lot more housing, and what we're building isn't really meeting the affordable housing needs. And I want to say that when I talk affordable housing, I'm using a vague term that we're talking about around the country, but that really doesn't mean that much. So I want to stop talking about affordable housing and talk about starter homes, because we all have that experience, right? These are the homes that are affordable to people making between 30 and 120% of area median income. These are homes that in the Richmond metro region are primarily owned by seniors. many of whom are mortgage burdened, many of whom live alone and fixed incomes and are having trouble making ends meet, which means deferred maintenance, particularly because seniors can't do the work themselves. They aren't going to get up on a ladder and fix a small hole in the roof. And this is the core housing stock in many of our neighborhoods. So my argument to you today, and anyone can tell me I'm wrong, is that this core housing stock, these small homes, are incredibly important in your communities in order to make sure all residents are adequately housed. And yet what we're building around the country and what we're building in Metro Richmond are not these types of houses. So the chart you're seeing that starts in 1976, you will see that we used to build a lot of homes that were about 1,400 square feet or less. And in 2020, you see nationally, we're building very, very few. And in Metro Richmond, the average new construction house in 2018 was about 2,600 square feet, so almost twice that size, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. These properties were built because they are a profitable use of land for the developer. But when you actually look at the households that are growing in Metro Richmond, as many of you know, they are 1- and 2-person households. So we have this disconnect between what the private market wants to build because they find it profitable and what we need, particularly to provide entry-level housing for our households, both young and old. We also know that when you're on a fixed income or when you have to make a choice between healthcare or food and housing, that housing often gets overlooked, right? We get deferred maintenance, we have fewer repairs made. And you can see it on this house, right, in Richmond metropolitan area. That roof is not going to last forever. And the owner's options to fix it are to use their income or to obtain a HELOC or a home improvement grant from a bank, if they're able to do so, or to find some help from a nonprofit or local government. And one of the reasons why I am talking to you about this is because the American Rescue Plan specifically says that this money can be used for home repairs. It can be used for home repairs for seniors. It can be used for home repairs for people who are in and out of hospitals because there may be asthma triggers or slip and fall hazards in their home. It may be used for those who have code violations, who it doesn't matter how often you cite them, they don't have the money to fix it. And so they're actually bringing down the value of nearby properties and harming the neighborhood. So let me talk Philadelphia for a second, which is where I'm talking to you from. And it's a gorgeous day here. And you're looking at this slide and you're saying, what? This is not what we're talking about, home repairs. This is just utter devastation. But let me just tell you, this neighborhood where this building collapsed was Mantua. And Mantua in Philadelphia is in West Philadelphia, just north of the University of Pennsylvania and Drexel University. And property values are skyrocketing. They've increased by about 50, 60%. So these row homes, which make up most of Philadelphia's housing stock, they're either 1,200 square feet row homes or 1,600 square feet row homes. They're almost all brick. Our average age of housing is 93 years. And they're very resilient homes and very affordable. I was asked to go into Mantua because there's been this fear of gentrification. You know, Penn and Drexel are just pushing not only their buildings, but their students into this community that's been historically do you feel like your home ownership is at risk? And if so, why? And I truly believe they were going to say, yes, it is at risk, and it's at risk because my taxes are going up. But they didn't. They said, yes, it is at risk. My house is falling apart faster than I can fix it. And soon after that conversation, this house fell down, quite literally. And I used that as an opportunity to start talking to Philadelphia politicians about the fact that in Philadelphia, when we were talking about affordable housing, we were talking about new infill housing. And those homes cost about $350,000 to build. And then we had a lottery and a big ribbon cutting, and we all patted ourselves on the back because there were 25 new homes and there were only 25,000 households who needed them. And so this question of, can we preserve the affordable housing that we have? And a wonderful foundation called the Oak Foundation funded me to run around to start something called the Healthy Row House Project, which you see on this door here, to talk about that the most affordable home is the one a family lives in now. The premise being that if you're going to have a balanced housing market, you need to preserve your existing affordable housing. You can do so cost effectively, or at least that's what I'm going to argue to you and I want to discuss at the end. And if you do so, then certainly you want to continue to add some units through, but it's really not replaceable because that's not what the private market is building. And we started studying what impact repairing an owner-occupied house has. And you may have noticed when you saw that second slide, and I teach at Penn. Yes, they are displacing people in the neighborhood north of them, but I teach there. I work with Drexel. We have done a lot of studies about what it means to repair a home. And some of those are, I think, obvious. We prevent displacement. We allow seniors to age in place. We slow the decline of home ownership. But some of those are things we haven't talked about before. We improve health. Housing is everything. It is the key social determinant of health, and hospitals and healthcare systems are paying attention to that. It revitalizes neighborhoods. We know through studies that if you put money into a house, it has a positive spillover effect, and others feel more comfortable investing in their homes in neighborhoods. It creates neighborhood jobs because most of the contractors who are doing small repairs are small guys. They're small businesses, 1 or 2 contractors, sometimes 3. These are not huge companies, and this is consistent work and important. So this was our framework in Philadelphia, and I want to talk to you a little about Philadelphia's experience and program, and then we're going to come back and discuss how it differs from Metro Richmond and whether there are some lessons that would be helpful for Metro Richmond. So the first piece of data we wanted was who needs home repairs, and specifically health-related home repairs. And by that, I mean repairs that impact health and safety, because I would guess, and anyone can raise their hand in the meeting if they disagree, that everyone in this room who is a homeowner has some repairs they would like to make. I would guess that most of us have repairs we need to make, but these are base repairs that really affect the health, safety, and quality of life of people in the building. And we expected to see, over on the left, you see in blue, that very low income, about 40% of those who were earning under $25,000 needed home repairs. We were not expecting the red zone, that 31% of people with moderate income, about $36,000 to $85,000, needed health and safety related home repairs. This really got our attention. And so we started talking and looking and surveying to see what were their health related home repair needs, and perhaps not surprisingly, leaks. So the most important thing was these homes were not watertight. And in Philadelphia, those row homes have flat roofs. So when water pools on a flat roof, it can be a huge problem. But we were also seeing problems with inadequate heating. And so we said, okay, so if we wanted to stabilize this housing stock, to make sure it was preserved, and we wanted to improve it enough that it was healthy for its occupants, what would it cost? And we found that for about half of these homes, 54%, it was about $10,000. So if I can take you back to where I started, which was Philadelphia's focus, was taking a piece of vacant property, putting in a new house, and that cost about $350,000. We were saying you could, in fact, preserve 35 homes for that same cost, keep those homeowners in there, improve their quality of life, and have all those spillover effects we talked about. Philadelphia, then, once we got everyone around the table, and we brought healthcare to the table, we brought transportation to the table, housing to the table, the environmentalists and smart growth folks, and we said, what kind of program do we want? Here are the 6 basic programs that not only were under discussion in Philadelphia, but I would say represent the programs around the country. There are grants. These primarily go to eligible homeowners. No one pays anything back. It's a one-time deal. Most of these programs limit the amount of the grant to somewhere around $15,000. And the idea is to go in, go out, stabilize that housing. A matching grant. Habitat in Philadelphia had actually switched their mission from new construction to home repair. And because they believe in sweat equity, they had said to homeowners, you know, we really need you to pay the costs of the materials. So pay for the drywall or the paint or the siding. And homeowners did. And sometimes it took them a year to make payments, but it was an option. It was a way to go. Deferred loans. These are loans due upon sale or transfer of a property. There are no monthly payments. So for people on fixed incomes, it's very viable and doable. Low interest loans. When we started this program, interest rates were very low. And we were looking at 2 or 3%, right? We were seeing them increase. So a $10,000 loan at 3% interest for a 10-year term means a $99 payment a month, right? And so we started looking at who could afford a $99 payment a month and would they do so. A forgivable loan. There was a lot of discussion about how we wanted to allow homeowners to stay, and if they did, we would forgive the loan in time. And then our code officers really said, you know, we are the bad guys here. We are citing people who are too poor to pay to fix up their property. We would like you to come up with a repair program that we can offer to people with code violations. And the healthcare system said, we have frequent flyers. These are people who are coming into our hospitals often, who need a significant amount of inpatient care. And we would like you to focus on them because we believe it will lower healthcare costs. There was something else we found that was shocking. And we found it, and then the Federal Reserve Bank saw our results and they did a study of their own and found it was even worse than we thought. And so I share the Federal Reserve study results because obviously they have credibility that no individual researcher could ever have. We found that throughout the Philadelphia metro area, 75% of the time, low and moderate income homeowner applicants were going to banks, going to lenders, going to credit unions, applying for home improvement loans. They were being turned down. 3 out of 4 had no access to credit. And so we sat down with a whole bunch of lenders and said, why is this? And so if you look at this, you'll see that about 24,000 Philadelphia homeowners sought home repair loans back when we were looking at this, and 62% were denied, which was much higher than those denied for home purchase, which was 11%, and much higher than housing refinance. And when we drilled down, we found something interesting. The lenders do not make a sufficient profit from small loans. Their overhead costs are the same. They still have to process the loan, underwrite everything, service it. But those $10,000 loans that we were talking about to fix a roof were not appealing to them. And so what we found is the larger the loan you asked for, the more chance you had of the lender saying yes. This was a real problem for row homes and starter homes because yes, someone on a fixed income might be able to afford $99 a month, but they can't afford $200 extra a month. It also meant that if I, for my luxury home, want a hot tub and a new bathroom, I am far more likely to get it, even if my credit rating is bad and my income is the same as someone who wants a smaller loan. The other thing lenders told us is that in Philadelphia, 660 was the threshold. They just didn't want to go beyond that. So they felt that to be eligible for a home improvement loan, you needed a 660 credit score. And they really did not have any study or evidence that if you had a 620 credit score, you wouldn't pay it back. And so we started thinking, what if we could get them to go down to 580? Would that make a difference? And we found that of Philadelphians with credit scores below 660, almost 60% had scores above 560. So can we get them to extend credit? Because without access to capital, how can you keep up your home? So here's what we did in Philadelphia, that $100 million that we talked about at the beginning. So first of all, the city had a long-standing basic system repair program, emergency repairs, mainly roofs, wall leaks, boilers, heating, and they put $60 million in that and had a nonprofit run it. Within 3 years, they helped 4,000 homeowners, 4,000 houses, so they were able to bring it to scale. The eligibility was less than 50% AMI, so we were really focused on people who couldn't afford a loan. 2 tiers of assistance. Tier 1, shallow subsidy, $3,500, a lot of accessibility work here. Tier 2 up to $17,500. The contractors were all pre-vetted and assigned with an established price list. But then we said, what about a loan program for those who can afford to make that $99 a month low income loan payment? And Philadelphia did something here, and I'm a long time Philadelphia person that just between you and I did not agree with, which is the city decided it wanted to be a lender. The city decided it would use this $40 million as principal and loan it out because the banks weren't doing so. And I'm going to show you the model after I show you this one that I pushed for, because I think both are worth considering if you believe and we find that access to private capital is a problem for homeowners in the Richmond Metro. So if you look at this, the contractors are private business people. There were a lot of small businesses who are supported through this. Philanthropy helped homeowners who were almost eligible, but not quite, because they didn't have clear title because their credit score needed to be improved a bit. And then the city actually lent their own principal, but banks provided the servicing. The loan size was $2,500 to $25,000, a 10-year term, 3% interest rate, minimum credit score, as we said, 580, and income as high as 120% AMI, which for Philadelphia was about $84,000 for a 2-person household. The contractors had to meet certain requirements. The homeowners got to decide what to fix because it was their money, but it had to be health and safety, no granite countertops. We got that program running just before COVID hit. I want to show you one other example just to inspire our conversation because I'm almost done here. Cleveland Heights had a loan program that I really thought was a good model for Philadelphia. What Cleveland Heights did was over 40 years, they guaranteed loans. $6 million worth of loans. And what they did is they basically put a certificate of deposit, a CD, in Key Bank for $160,000. And they said, if any of our home improvement loans default, we will cover 40% of it or 100% of it, depending on how risky it is, lender. So you can feel more comfortable because it's shared risk. And in Cleveland Heights, almost all of the people they helped were seniors. And rather than becoming a lender themselves, what they did was they said, we will reduce the loan risk. And Key Bank said, okay, I will provide loans to homeowners that I would not normally loan money to. And that private capital are evergreen dollars. Right? The banks are never going to run out of money, whereas Philadelphia had $40 million to spend and they will run out. A $5,000 loan minimum, they guarantee either 40 or 100% of the loan. And they had about a 95% repayment rate. And the people who failed to pay, none of us can blame because that was the reason for default. And some of them, their heirs and children did pay, and some of them did not. So it's just something to flag. They also, for the very lowest income homeowners, seniors, meshed the loan and the grant and created a hybrid program so that it could be affordable. And it was very successful for a long period of time. Okay, I want to stop so we can talk about this. I just want to talk a little bit about the impacts that we saw. So in Philadelphia, as I say, this came out just as COVID hit. So what did that mean? That meant people did not want anyone in their homes. It meant contractors were incredibly busy. And it meant that the first year we did about 65 of these as opposed to the 300 we were hoping for in our first year. The studies showed those homes were absolutely preserved. We did not see any vacancy. We actually helped people get their will together and make sure they could pass this down safely. Neighborhood revitalization, we saw a huge amount of investment around these houses. And the most startling thing is that once you went into a block to fix a house, overall crime on that block was reduced by 21.9%, which shocked everyone. And if anyone wants that study, I'm happy to forward it, or just do Google 21.9% Philadelphia Basic Systems Repair Program. It made the national news. It stabilized homeownership at a time when we buy ugly houses and national investors are buying homes and transforming them into rentals and changing majority homeowner neighborhoods in a way many people in Philadelphia did not want. It improved homeowner health so much that in Philadelphia, we now have 3 hospitals with Children's Hospital at the forefront who are paying for bricks and mortar repairs in the home for their patients because they saw that dramatic a drop in emergency room care for these folks who are coming in all the time. Okay, so that's the Philadelphia story. What I'd like to do with the remainder of our time, Martha, if it's okay, is just take some questions and have some discussion. I'm going to stop sharing my slides so we can all see each other. Any thoughts? I mean, could this work in Richmond? Is it something that you see a need for in your communities?
All right, questions? Comments? What happens when someone doesn't pay? Does that then become a lien on the property?
So yes, there is a lien on the property for all of the loan programs. On the deferred loans, right, you don't pay it until the end. Philadelphia has not had anyone default yet. So it hasn't had to face that. Cleveland Heights, 95% of people paid. We were lucky enough to have a foundation that was willing to cover those few people who died and were not able to pay. So some of it goes into the vetting ahead of time. So this is a person who's serious about preserving their biggest asset, which is their home, and willing to pay. But we luckily haven't had that problem.
Other questions, Mr. Waddell?
Yes. You mentioned the Philadelphia Loan Revolving Fund, I think it said 40 million. What is the source of funding for that fund? Is it general fund, or is it maybe an allocation on the capital assets tax? And I assume you may have a capital assets tax on bank deposits. What's the source of funding for the Loan Revolving Fund?
The city decided to take out $100 million bond, put 60 million that they would not recapture into grants and 40 million that they hope to recapture in loans. It's obviously a very slow revolve because it's a 10-year term. So the only way you get that money back in shorter time frame is if that person sells, and then it becomes all due immediately. But on top of that bond issue, the city is now talking about putting American Rescue Plan dollars in under these same programs because it was such a popular program and did so much for neighborhoods and homeownership.
Mr. Addison, mix it up a little bit.
Follow up. Okay. This is a great presentation, great discussion. I'm looking to do land value tax evaluation for Richmond, which I know Philadelphia uses exclusively for many benefits. But one of the things I wanted to ask as a conversation for us in Virginia is, could this be a partnership we could use with community development financial institutions, CDFIs, around this kind of exact aspect, because that's the federal kind of state process of community support, unconventional banking options that could provide loans of this capacity. We could cover the loan loss aspect and supporting a bigger bond revolving loan fund that we can continue to add to without it having to be directly needing for that specific huge bond that Philadelphia just fronted for the funding for this. I'm just curious about some financial options that could explore supporting this exact outcome. And my last little caveat would be, you're proving, I think, with your evaluation on the payment being good, from what we're seeing from the universal basic income analysis too, where people are using this for really specific important needs and are prioritizing that investment. This seems to marry up pretty well with that same analysis.
Any response, Ms. Black?
I think to look at all different forms of funding is smart. In Philadelphia, we had lenders who were interested in being in this home improvement market. Our CDFIs, and we have two large ones, did not provide individual loans. They only provide basically construction loans for large projects. So we didn't have that option.
Thank you.
Mr. Waddell.
One more quick question, and this might be getting off of topic. I didn't hear any discussion on a real estate tax relief. Hanover County has a program with thresholds for qualifying, I'm gonna say low income, where they grant some real estate tax relief, and we, Board of Supervisors, up the threshold. Is that part of the model that you're talking about? Is that a potential part of the model, if not?
So here's what we found, and I found this in other cities as well since Philadelphia. So I don't think this is a local situation. Yes, Philadelphia and most places say if you rehab your home and it raises the value of your property, you will get some break on that increase in assessed value. But the repairs we were making really didn't impact assessed value. You put on a new roof, you fix a bathroom that's in bad shape, you deal with trip and fall risks or accessibility. It doesn't raise the value of that property very much. And so one, we found there wasn't a lot of benefit to the homeowner there. And two, we found, interestingly, when we had focus groups with the homeowners, that the last thing they wanted to do was call the assessor's attention to their home. They were darn sure that we find some reason to raise those taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, you mentioned initially you didn't recommend the city get involved directly in loans, and given the low ability to offer loans because of the cost of them, what was your recommendation on this program?
So my recommendation was to ask lenders to get out there and give these small loans as part of their CRA, Community Reinvestment Act, obligation to low and moderate income communities, because we knew that there were a lot of lenders in our area that had been audited and were not doing many home improvement loans in neighborhoods of color or in low and moderate income neighborhoods. So from an equity point of view, and then the city would help guarantee that they would be paid back in the end. And there were lenders interested. Under the Trump administration, there was a decision not to enforce Community Reinvestment Act obligations any longer. And so some of the lenders who really felt like they had a business model need to get into these neighborhoods no longer felt it. And I believe some of them are starting to feel that pressure again with the change in administration.
Mr. Peterson.
Ms. Black, in Philadelphia, you started all this conversation as basically working with seniors and people with limited incomes. Has this work resulted in rejuvenation of these neighborhoods? And the first thing we were talking about was starter homes. These homes that are for the seniors should be ending up turning back over to the young people who are just starting out. Is that happening?
So first, yes, absolutely. These homes, by the time the repairs are made and we talk to the owner and we untangle any title issues and hopefully convince them not to just die without a will so it goes intestate, these properties are being very quickly bought, and everything is being done to ensure they're bought for home ownership and not being sold to investors until, and I could talk about those programs. There has absolutely been extraordinary revitalization of neighborhoods, not just because it brought down crime and not just because it encouraged the owners on either side to put money into the homes, but it just created this wonderful energy around the fact that row homes and starter homes are viable, and an awful lot of households cannot buy new construction. It was just completely out of the question for them. And so we have a lot of young people coming into these neighborhoods, buying these homes, fixing them up, and we believe they'll be here for the next generation. And that's a really important thing for a balanced housing market. You just have to have some homes that people can enter into home ownership.
Ms. Black, and we're running short of time. One final question and a comment as well. Is there any effort as part of this program to educate people on credit? I have found as a bankruptcy attorney that it seems to be just a labyrinth. People don't understand credit. They don't understand how you build credit. And is that part of what you all are doing on any level?
So yes, absolutely. So two parts. One, any owner who wants to take out a loan has to meet with a housing counselor because we want to make sure that they can pay it back and they're able to pay it back. Anyone who had a credit score of 500 or above had the opportunity to meet with a credit counselor and raise that credit. And we were able to raise credits on average 32 points within a 6-month period, and to explain how to do that, right? Because that is incredibly important. The other thing I just want to say, because Lee had a question that he put in chat about whether we looked at weatherization and utilities. Wherever possible, we merged the weatherization grants with these programs. But even more importantly, and I don't know if any of your communities are finding this, we were having trouble using our weatherization grants because the homes airflow, it was not airtight. You know, if you have a leak in your roof or there's a problem, you don't get a weatherization grant until you can repair that. So we both worked with weatherization, but we also got the house to the point where it would qualify for weatherization, and that was very important.
Dr. Newbill, I think you have a question too.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank Ms. Black for the presentation and to make sure that we would be able to receive a copy. And I wanted to know, Ms. Black, if you and/or Jovan would be available should we have questions, and I suspect I would, subsequent to further review of your presentation.
Absolutely. I'm happy to talk about this more. I think this is a really important opportunity for Richmond as our housing ages, and we want to maintain our home ownership and our starter homes. I'm happy to talk to anyone, and I believe Michelle is going to print out this presentation and post it.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you.
right. We'll have the presentations posted on the website by the end of the day today on the far right column where you download your agenda packets. And we do have hard copies here in the room for those of you that would like to grab one on your way out.
Thank you, Ms. Black, and this has been a wonderful presentation, and we really appreciate you being here today to share this with us and help us as we think about the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before we adjourn, may I have a brief moment? I know we talk about emergency management, and I know it's on a whole different level, but, and I know that you all tolerate me when I fight for our smaller jurisdiction, but I just wanted, especially the Henrico and the city of Richmond and Chesterfield County, to know that New Kent watches the news, and we see what's going on with the many shootings and killings that's going on, and it touches us. So we want to send condolences to your constituents. Absolutely any support that we can surrender to you, and to know that we are a team, and we don't have solutions for some of what you're going through. We cannot even imagine. But please know that we absolutely stand with you as you go through these times that you're going through right now. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Any other comments? With that?
I move to adjourn.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you all.
Happy Easter or Passover, whatever.
That's it.